Today we have a very special guest, Dr. S. FAISI, PhD, ecologist, UN environmental negotiator, residing in Trivandrum, India, chairman, IUCN bar CEESP Task Force on Post 2020 Global Biodiversity Framework, member expert group on biodiversity and development of the UN Convention on Biological Diversity, consultant biodiversity UNDP, biodiversity advisor GICA, West Bengal Forest Department, team leader GICA's Gujarat Ecosystem Management Study, member UNCBD Informal Advisory Committee on CEPA. Today's topic, you know that? My health, my right.
Thank you, Dr. De Silva. And I also compliment you for starting the meeting exactly on time, which is a very rare thing in our country. And this is actually the second time I'm coming on your platform, although I'm not a health specialist in any way. The first time was at the peak of the COVID pandemic. Now I'm pleased to be here once again. I must say that I'm very happy that the team of doctors are coordinating this event continuously for more than 2 years, I think it is. So this is actually kind of a record, and this should also be properly brought to public knowledge. And also, I think something even more remarkable is that a group from Kerala is able to network and mobilize and organize so many. Dr. Yahya was telling me sometime that you have so many different groups for different languages, different countries, and so on. So that's also something very remarkable, and I wish you all the best in continuing this endeavor. I am also conscious of the negative impact that the allopathic medicine often has. We have the impression that allopathic medicine has the answer to everything. And we take antibiotics and so on very often, to the point that it could also impair the immunity of your body. Then we also know that a large number of diseases are also born in the allopathy hospitals. They're called iatrogenic diseases, as you must be knowing. And in the US alone, I read somewhere that it is more than 3 lakh deaths that is happening every year due to hospital-caused diseases. And then, of course, the whole allopathic system is what is guiding the science of allopathy is actually the commerce, the drug manufacturers. It's a very powerful global lobby, then the hospital, the private hospital networks, and so on. Therefore, we also need to have, first of all, we need to control allopathy properly with ethical and regulatory provisions. But we also need to have other options, homeopathy, for example. There's a lot of criticism, I know, about homeopathy. But I know in Germany, it's practiced widely, at least a significant part of the population, they go for it. And they also have the oldest association of homeopathy doctors, the German Association of Homeopathy Doctors, that was established sometime in the late 1800s. Homeopathy, I know, is also in some countries there is a reservation about it. But then in EU, there is a EU directive, or it's a legal instrument of 2001, number 83. This is about, these are courts recognition to homeopathy as a medical practice on human health. So I have seen some of our people, medical doctors, allopathic doctors, completely disregarding these facts. And then we also know WHO in its annual health, global health report presents a section on traditional medicine or complementary medicine, traditional and complementary medicine, where homeopathy is also covered. Ayurveda is covered, Unani is covered. And then WHO has also issued guidelines for regarding safety measures in the manufacturing of homeo medicines. So I think our allopathy sector here is largely uninformed about these kind of recognitions that homeopathy holds abroad. Now, the right to health obviously has to be our choice. And in this regard, this Kerala Health Bill that is going to be introduced in the Assembly soon, it's a very, I just browsed through it. It's a very thick document of some 75 pages. In our country, we are very good at making very thick law documents, and a lot of lawyers and legal people find their employment in creating big, thick laws. And then, of course, all the litigation is a quite lucrative business. So I couldn't go through all the 72 pages. But what I have seen generally is a reluctance on the part of the bill to recognize all the different streams of medical systems. But that has to change. Ayurveda has a role, homeopathy has a role. In our country, every village, in Kerala especially, we have a government homeo hospital and government Ayurveda hospital in every village, government hospital. And then, of course, numerous private clinics are also there. So when the government is investing so much of resources and employing large number of doctors, why should it want to relegate the importance of these streams, which is very, very unfair and is actually self-defeating, especially since a lot of our people depend on these, on homeopathy for their medical conditions. And with singular emphasis on allopathy, then again, because it's largely an industry, the drug manufacturing industry and hospital industry, where profit is the primary motivation and not the science, and not the trade of healing. And our regulatory mechanisms and the ethical guidelines more often fail than creating any positive impact. So that on that part, on bringing the allopathic medicine to accountability and to drive it in an ethical path, the bill isn't anything very useful. And then the bill also has this pet thing of the powers, that be to control the people, to penalize people on whatever they think the rulers think is an error or is a mistake or even a crime on the part of the people. And they are sitting in judgment without necessarily having a scientific basis for such decisions. We have seen the lockdown in our country, and this was declared under the Disaster Management Act. We have seen police taking over the control of our public life, the system, and a central government deciding what time you should open office, what time you should close it, or whether you should open or close, and things like that. So that was, first of all, it was also a breach of the federal principles upon which our constitution and our governance systems are based. A central government dictating to states. And here, now the state in turn wants to impose that on people and to make use of opportunities that it would deem as health emergency to control the people and give its dictates. This, I think, is quite worrying. We have seen excesses during the emergency, during the pandemic. And we have also seen the excesses during the 1975-77 emergency. So power can corrupt, and it can also deny the people their fundamental rights as enshrined in the Constitution. Therefore, one has to be very careful in empowering the government system with even more powers for declaring emergencies. Another strange thing there in the draft is people have to report if there are pandemics or suspected pandemic or new kind of illnesses in the neighborhood. But who are the people? How can a layman decide that this is an infectious disease or it can turn into a pandemic or large scale disease or something? That is a very unprofessional approach. This has to be left to the doctors or maybe even medical laboratories testing blood samples. The Kerala's Panchayati Raj Act is a very powerful one. That's also another very thick document. But then it contains some very substantive measures. Even from the environmental perspective, I've seen that the Panchayati Raj Act in Kerala is very powerful, and it devolves powers to the panchayats in a large number of areas. And healthcare is also one of those. So I see instances of repugnance in the new bill with the existing Panchayati Raj Act. And then we have a lot of pests around, including the street dogs, rats, pets, and all that. And this is we have to have a hygienic environment, and that is the responsibility of all of us. Even the Constitution requires us, the citizens, to protect the environment. But here it's the law, the draft law is trying to make that as the responsibility of the citizen, which is not the case. Even the Panchayati Raj Act requires the Panchayats Raj institutions to address these issues. So I'm hoping that there will be a serious debate in the public platforms on the issue, and the select committee of the assembly, the subject committee of the assembly, will pay attention to these issues and make the new bill compatible to the new challenges that are emerging. The challenges especially arising out of the environmental crisis. First of all, we have the climate crisis. We also have the crisis of biodiversity degradation. So both these have very serious implications on the health issues. In climate change, we know that the temperature is now increasing from the start of industrialization. It has already increased to 1.1 degrees centigrade. And now it is set to increase even more. And countries under the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change are trying to limit it within 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees by the year 2050. But those attempts, in my view, are only half-hearted, and we are not going to have a very serious let up in the climate crisis in the near future, meaning that we will have even more new diseases. Like we had HIV in the 80s, then we had Nipah, we have Ebola virus, we have coronavirus, and even more are there in store. For example, when the glaciers and the Arctic regions suffer from the melting of ice, the historically stored microorganisms, their spores are coming out and taking life. So the spores that are preserved under temperature minus 20, minus 40, and even lower temperatures are taking life and causing are likely to cause human health problems. After all, our history, the human history on this planet is only about 3 lakh years. But the Earth itself has a history, something like 450 crore years, 450 crore years. So our history is something like 0.06%, very minute history, period of history. And within this small period, we have lived in harmony with nature most of the time. But during the past 150 years, since the onset of the Industrial Revolution, the modernization, the modern civilization, things have changed. Things have changed on the one hand by increasing the ambient temperature, by filling the atmosphere with more carbon dioxide mainly from fossil fuels use, carbon dioxide. Even methane is also harmful. Actually, methane is even more harmful than carbon dioxide. 1 unit of methane is equivalent to 1 unit of carbon dioxide, 26 times carbon dioxide, 1 unit of carbon dioxide. So methane's impact, although the volume of methane is much, much less, its impact is far more. And even this whole carbon dioxide in the environment is only very minuscule, given the whole composition of the air is only 0.04 parts, 400 parts per million, or 0.04%. So even that much of carbon dioxide is present in the ambient air. With the incremental increase in the carbon dioxide that's happening, so even when the percentage is small, the impact is going to be much higher. And countries have committed to reduce this under the UNFCCC. And recently they had the conference, and under the Paris Agreement, they have set targets and all that. But all these, again, like what I was mentioning about the allopathic industry, the carbon industry, the fossil fuel producing industry is very huge and very powerful, mighty. They control the world. Therefore, significant reductions in the carbon dioxide emission is going to be problematic. It's not going to happen easily. So on the other hand, you have degradation of biodiversity and ecosystems. We have 1.75 million species on Earth. And a large number of these species are facing some kind of decline. And species including microbes up to your large mammals, elephants, then agriculture crops, wild, freshwater, marine, terrestrial, all these are included in the concept of biodiversity. So to protect biodiversity, there's a UN convention again, the Convention on Biological Diversity. But if we look at the picture of the ground reality, there has been no visible reduction in the threats faced by biodiversity. And all this is now getting accentuated, and therefore the world has finally realized, particularly WHO, that we need to have a system where human health, the ecosystem, and the animal health, especially the domestic animals, have to be seen in a holistic way, in an integrated way, in order to address some of the current diseases as well as emerging zoonotic diseases. And that's why they coined the new concept called One World, One Health. One World, One Health, integrating concepts of ecosystem conservation and management, human health concerns, and also the health and welfare of animals, especially the domestic animals, which is a source of diseases quite often, and also wild animals also, like Nipah virus or COVID virus and so on. So WHO has created this idea, and it is now, they are also promoting it by providing a lot of training and policy training for the medical community and medical health policy experts, providing support to governments on how to implement this at the field level. I think your association can also look at the One Health policy and what it entails for the homeopathy sector, and probably you can provide a very serious contribution in consolidating the idea of One Health and promoting the homeopathic system within that. Maybe your association can also write to the WHO Director General. Since there are people from different states, each one can, your association from each state can also do this. I can share the contact details of the people at WHO if needed. Before I conclude, I would like to tell you that there is a very pressing need for the homeopathy community to publish in journals about your treatment and its impacts. Some people complain that all these journals are controlled by drug companies and so on. I don't think that is a serious allegation. There are a lot of journals that, for example, Lancet, the largest or most respected medical journal. I've read a report in there some time ago where they were their own statistics was saying that in India we had at that time we were a smaller population. 10 crore people are fully dependent on homeopathic treatment in India. So you can you can prove the efficacy of the system pharmacologically and also statistically. So if that is done, young people are conducting research, and then I think the homeopathy community also needs some orientation in conducting proper research, analysis, data analysis, and so on. So that maybe your association could also conduct some workshops on this and encourage your MD students and so on to undertake such research and publish their findings. You can have both this pharmacological studies on the one hand, but also on the other hand, you can do statistical studies, statistical evidence of the impact. Out of a total population, you have applied, certain particular medicine, and how many failed and how many have been successful. So in the stories that I hear of the impact of homeo and also other systems, people tend to talk about the successes, but they don't talk about the failures. So there could also be failures, and that is also natural. In allopathy also there are failures. But then the percentage, that is important, that matters. So you look at the total administered number of patients for particular disease, particular medicine, and then how many have been successful, what level of success, and how many have not been successful. So these kind of things, if you publish, prepare your papers in a verifiable way, following proper protocol and all that, I'm sure journals will publish. And that will be a great service for your own profession, and also something very much in public interest. I also have a very personal suggestion. I've seen homeo doctors are very, very nice friends, including in my family itself. They don't write the name of the medicine. I think it's safe to write the name. Suppose there is a complication, or that patient wants to consult somebody else, and that doctor may be asking, so what have you taken, and so I think unless you have serious reasons not to do that, it is good to write the names of the medicine that you are giving. So with those words, I will now conclude. It's about 40 minutes and we can have a discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Hubert, for giving me a chance to present some comments. A nice presentation altogether. And one thing I must add that, of course, the IFPH is eager to have some presentations on regarding these research activities that are going in homeopathic field. In the coming days, 8, 9, and 10, we have a session for continuous 3 days. Dr. Chandraja will present papers or having an analysis of different publications. Hundreds of publications are there, but nobody is reading that. That is a problem. There are a lot of publications. Then another important thing is that similar studies for the convenience or the sake of those who are always insisting on research. Plenty of research work is going in the Central Council of Research, Kottayam, Mental Health Research, Kottayam. Then, of course, the JIPMER, Jawaharlal Institute of Postgraduate Medical Research in Chandigarh. Dr. Prakash Rao, he did present a lot of topics in the platform regarding the efficacy of the so-called efficacy of the medicines on certain conditions, even though that is not at all in concern with the homeopathic principles. As Dr. Hubert said, this is always based upon the reality. That means the individuality. You have your own personality, I have my own personality, the 56 participants has their own personalities, their own disease, their own problems, and their own manifestations. Right? So that methodology based upon a specific medicine is not at all, in fact, in accordance with the homeopathic principle. That is the major problem, not we are facing, but those criticizing, but they can't understand it. That's their own problem. Then another problem is science is developing further and further. As time progresses, we expect they can explain or to a comfortable zone. For example, the quantum entanglement theory. Two molecules at a distant, wide distance or distant apart can act together as a single molecule. So in the coming days, that may be, or the nanoparticle technology may, through that, can give an explanation how the cure is effective. That's a fact. The events are a fact. We know the phenomenology is there. As far as the natural science all natural science are concerned. Then, for example, in case of the sniffer dogs using in the police, on what science they are using the snow dogs? Only by experience. Nobody knows. By experience.
This JIPMER doctor, he was researching on the impact of homeopathy.
No, he's a homeopathy physician, Dr. Prakash Rao, who is conducting the study in JIPMER, Pondicherry. Yes. There are, you can see in the IFPH YouTube, a lot of presentations are done, Dr. Prakash Rao. Then regarding you said about this eco-friendly medicine, then for animals, plants, or the health and welfare of these animals and plants, it can only be achieved through homeopathy, because we are always using the minimum amount of crude substances for medications or for preparing medicines. In the COVID era, we have given millions of patients medicine arsenic, but using very little quantity of the medicine, the original substance. That's a major important thing. Then another thing, we are not at all in favor of for conducting this cruel animal experimentation. You said about the protection of the domestic as well as the wild animals. Yes, definitely we can say homeopathy is the lone science that always insisting on it, never sheds a drop of blood, according to Henneman. Then regarding the One Health policy, also we can have our own contribution, because in the coming diseases, the viral diseases, they're all whether it is a RNA virus or a DNA virus, we can treat. We did prove through the COVID the medication. Then again, the study report published by, I think, the lone study report published by a government agency, Department of Homeopathy in Kerala, published the efficacy of this arsenic oil in COVID prevention. It proved around 92% efficacy, and the statistical analysis done by NIMHANS, Bangalore. But how many studies are going in such a way, not sponsored by the private agencies for their convenience of their proving their medicines, to promoting their medicines? But homeopathy is doing that too. But these are not at all reached the higher level. That is a long problem, sir. Anyway, nice presentation. I hope you will again become the part of the IFPH. Thank you.
Here, Dr. Shaji Kudiyat, our Vice
Thank
President,
you.
IFPH Vice
Thank
President.
you. Thank you, Dr. FAISI, for your coming to our forum and for giving a presentation. I have three questions for you. One is regarding, you mentioned about the global warming. I heard that there are lockdowns coming declared by the World Health Organization, planning to declare based on global warming. And this is also all pre-planned. As we understand now itself. And also there are other lockdowns coming from due to aliens coming from other planets. The even pictures they are spreading. That is regarding, I just also asking this question when you mentioned about the global warming. That is one thing. Second thing, I just wish to mention few more things in line with what Dr. Manoj mentioned. Homeopathy and other traditional and alternative systems of medicines are holistic systems of medicine where more than one parameters are taking into consideration, which is not taking place in allopathic system of medicine. Only the material plane is taken into consideration. They have RCTs published so in a suitable way to reflect their research methodologies based on material science. But traditional and alternative systems of medicines are holistic sciences where not only material plane, along with that dynamic components needed to be incorporated also. For example, the biochemistry of a human being can be entirely modified just by changing the thought of a person from happiness to sadness or sadness to happiness. Such things are never taken into scientific consideration during the RCTs. That is a reason for their failure. That is why such a scientifically proven medicines are withdrawn after some time. And animal proving is another worse scenario because animals can never communicate. Only objective proving we will get. And of course, we can understand allopathic pharmaceutical promoting that methodology, but genuine scientific community should not approve it and promote it because that is not really scientific, because it will not incorporate the entire components that constitute life and governing the living phenomena. So when you people come and tell us, publish in such a manner, which is not really scientific, which may be approved at present because wrong people control the world and they manipulate the entire world because of their economic might, military might, and media might, and multiple mights they have. They are deceiving people, they are cheating people, and I appreciate you also should understand that such a kind of scientific methodologies needed to be modified for the sake of humanity and healthy existence of humanity. And that is the important thing I wish to share with you, because it is not RCTs that should be needed for medical scientific researchers. It is case studies. Individual case studies should be the important thing. And I hope that will be the type of researches we need to conduct in holistic systems of medicine like homeopathy. And we can do some researches in line with the RCTs to satisfy the current scientific community that already done, and we are still doing. See what happened in Australia. The government of Australia constituted a committee to study a meta-analysis on the effectiveness of homeopathy. More than 200 studies were taken that happened around the world, and the initial committee constituted by the government of Australia after meta-analysis found the homeopathy is effective. And the draft report was submitted to the government. The government never published it, but waited for the period of the committee to finish. Immediately upon termination of the committee's term, they constituted a new committee without any homeopathic doctors there, with their own people. And same studies were again meta-analyzed and found out homeopathy was not effective, and that committee report was immediately published. So the homeopathic community in Australia found it is very abnormal, and they petitioned to the government, to the Senate, and now they were forced to publish the initial draft committee report also. But all around the world, the official committee report was published by the second committee, which was constituted after the termination of term of the first committee, who proved and through meta-analysis homeopathy was effective. So such kind of brutally cruel manipulations are happening, and we are still believing in such unscientific science, and their methodologies are very sad to say. I wish to hear from you, sir, please.
On this threat of lockdown due to climate change, I think that is completely wrong. I'm involved in the UN FCCC process, closely watching it also when I'm not there. There is nothing like that. And but probably somebody was exaggerating, or maybe realistically saying that at this rate of climate change, the world will have to close down at some point, because the carbon emission will be so much, and the temperature increase will be heavy. And in low climates, the sub-zero temperatures will be widespread. And as a result, we will have ocean levels rising, and drinking water dropping, and new diseases and all this happening. And so somebody was imaginatively saying that we'll have to face a lockdown. And about the UFOs, I am not familiar with that area, but I don't think there is any serious discussion on lockdown due to UFOs either. So from the previous two interventions, what I would understand is a lot of work is going on to document and also to publish. And I also understand that the homeopathic system, because of its inherent nature, and because it's different from the modern Western science, need to have your own protocols, methodologies to develop your own research. But then one underlining point is that science is replicable, whether it is medicine is given by one doctor or another doctor. It should be replicable on patients with similar features or disease conditions. But in any case, probably you can also have dialogue with the research community in the so-called mainstream, and understand each other and develop your protocols, and provide more capacity building in your area of research. And I would certainly like to read a couple of research papers on the efficacy of Ayurveda.
Yes, sir.
That's for my own understanding, not for any argument or anything. And
Yes, sir.